International Career Counseling Center is a team of experts dedicated to helping students achieve their dreams of studying in Canada since 2014. More than 5,500 students have converted their dreams into reality with the help of our expertise. We have recently opened our newest branch office at Putali Sarak Chowk on the third floor of Putali Hub building. You're welcome to visit our office if you're planning on studying in Canada and want to explore your career options. International Career Counseling Center, Putali Sarak Chowk, Kathmandu.
Hello and namaste. Welcome to Shaiksik Month television program on TV Today. This is your host Ramesh Tamisane for the show. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Mr. Matthew Johnston, the Minister Counselor for Education and Research at the Australian High Commission, New Delhi. As a bridge between Australian educational institutions and South Asia, Mr. Johnston plays a pivotal role in fostering academic and research collaborations. We'll be discussing opportunities for Nepalese students in Australia, available scholarships, visa policies, and more to help prospective students navigate their educational journey. Please join me in welcoming him. So, namaste and welcome to our program.
Namaste. Thank you very much for having me here today, Ramesh.
Could we start by briefing your role as the Minister Counselor for Education and Research in the Australian High Commission, New Delhi?
Yes, certainly. Very happy to talk about that. So I'm very lucky. I'm one of few Australian education diplomats around the world to be based here in the wonderful region of South Asia. Although I am based in New Delhi in India, my role covers all countries in the region, and Nepal is a very important partner for Australia. It's been Australia has been a very popular destination for Nepali students for very many years, which we're very grateful for. So it's wonderful to be here with you. My role as a diplomat or as an education diplomat is a little different to a traditional foreign affairs diplomat. I focus entirely on education and research cooperation and skilling. So I work with governments, I facilitate partnerships with institutions, I engage with students, I engage with education agents who, advise and counsel students on where to study around the world. So my role is really diverse, and I get to work with a lot of great people, which is really very exciting.
Yeah, that's great. Could you provide an overview of what makes Australia an attractive destination of higher education for Nepalese students?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, Nepalese students have been coming to Australia for many years. We have a very large Nepalese diaspora in Australia, primarily in Sydney and Melbourne. I think the main reasons why Australia is really popular for Nepali students, particularly in higher education, is Australia is a very safe, open, warm and welcoming country. Our education system is among the best in the world. Our higher education institutions, our universities, are extremely highly ranked in the top 100 and top 200. In fact, nearly all of our universities are in the top 300 to 400 top-ranked universities globally. So we really, even though we're a smaller country, we really outperform a lot of countries around the world in terms of offering really high-quality education. But I guess one of the other really important reasons for Nepali students to choose Australia is quality of life, the ability to work and gain real-world experience and skills. And our institutions provide great qualifications for whatever your dream may be, whether here in Nepal, in Australia, or all around the world. Our qualifications are highly regarded.
What scholarships does the Australian government offer to Nepalese students? And could you please highlight some key scholarships with their eligibility criteria?
Oh, very happy to. All of our universities are very generous in offering scholarships, whether they be full scholarships or part scholarships. It's very common for 20, 30% scholarship to be granted to nearly all students who apply to study in Australia, but some very meritorious students also can get full scholarships. There are scholarships available for living costs as well. We have a really great website that your viewers should go and visit. It's called studyaustralia.gov.au, and on there is a really comprehensive scholarship search engine. So you can go one-stop shop to find all scholarship opportunities through all of our education institutions in Australia. In terms of government scholarships, the Australian government and the Australian Embassy here in Nepal offer Australia Awards. Australia Awards are very generous scholarships for about 20 people from Nepal, whether they be in government, students, or some sort of leadership position. They're full scholarships to go and do sort of full masters in Australia. It's really a part of strengthening our bilateral relationship between Australia and Nepal. So they are very elite scholarships, but each year there's around 20 available for really meritorious people. And the Australian ambassador here, Her Excellency Felicity Volk, she has been doing a great job here in strengthening the bilateral relationship, and those Australia Awards are a pivotal part of it.
Could you provide an update on Australian student visa policy regarding any recent changes that international students should be aware of? Also, please include PSW opportunities for students.
Of course. I know the visa question is always really important for students, and particularly those post-study work rights. So in December last year, the Australian government announced a very comprehensive review and new policies for all visa types, not just for students, for all visa types. It's called Australia's Migration Strategy. That has started a number of changes that have been implemented and are now very close to being bedded down and put in place, with very few changes to come. So some of these are around the genuine student test. So this is in our visa application process, some criteria that our decision makers look at to ensure that the student is high quality, ready to study and able to achieve their goals in Australia, and are a genuine student. Those changes have now been implemented, and really we see it streamlining the visa application process for students. But a lot of the focus and reforms that Australia has been undertaking recently is about strengthening integrity and ensuring quality. We unfortunately had some cases in recent years of students being taken advantage of. This happens all around the world, but there have been some cases of this happening in Australia. We don't like that. The Australian government doesn't like that. We've acted very quickly to put in place a lot of very strong protections for students. So, there may be a bit of misinformation around about our visa changes. Australia is open to students. We want students, but we want really high quality students who are really genuine about their study journey and wanting to get the best qualification they can. And our changes have been directed towards that. If people are interested in what these changes are, our migration strategy is available online and you can see all the changes. But a lot of the fundamentals for international students and international education have not changed. You can make your application for a student visa online. The criteria are very clear. We work very closely with the education agents associations here in Nepal to make sure they're across all the changes to ensure that students have as much as possible a streamlined application process. But I do understand that sometimes these policies can be a bit confusing, but there is a lot of information available in the public domain for students, and there is support available to go through the process.
Yeah, thank you for making it clear. What support services are available to Nepalese students to adapt life and study in Australia? And how can this support help Nepalese students adapt to life, study, and settle down there, integrate into the Australian community?
It's a really important question, Ramesh. It's, I think that is a real point of difference for Australia as opposed to other international education study destinations. Australia is the only country in the world that has legislation passed by our parliament that protects international students. It protects them in terms of their safety and welfare and well-being, but also protects their financial investment in Australia. So we are world leading. I think we are unique in having this legislation to protect students. In addition to this, all of our universities have obligations to have student welfare officers, dedicated international student officers as well. And those officers help with adjusting to Australia, finding safe accommodation. If you are struggling with some of your studies, they provide referrals to support services, mental health support services, or a full comprehensive suite of support is there in Australia at each of our universities. We also have migrant resource centres which work very closely with the diaspora community there as well to ensure Nepalese students can be connected with the Nepalese community there in Australia as well. And we also have the Council for International Students. So this is a representative body that has a direct voice to the Australian government representing the interests of international students. Each university has their own association that international students can join. And if they need some advocacy or some assistance or referrals, that is in place there. I'm really lucky with my job. Australia does a really good job of making sure students can do the best they can when they come to Australia. Actually, more broadly, migration into Australia, we have really comprehensive support services for the people who may be refugees or other newly arrived migrants, including in English language training and everything else. So it's not just for students, it's for all migrants to Australia. And that's why I said at the outset, Australia is open, it's warm, and we really invite international students who are genuine about study in Australia.
That's good. Could Nepal be a viable destination for transnational education? What can Nepal do to host Australian university branches here?
Yeah, look, really, really interesting question, actually. And it's something that my team and I have been doing quite a lot of work on and engaging with the government of Nepal on in terms of what are some opportunities that might be there. To be honest, I think there is great potential for T&E or transnational education in Nepal, whether that be partnerships between Australian universities and Nepalese universities, or even, as you said, Ramesh, Australian universities establishing here. But really, to do that, there needs to be very clear policies. There really needs to be very clear regulations that set out the rules or guidelines for our universities to come in and start delivering. We are very open as of the Australian government to work with the government of Nepal if this was something of interest to them. And if the education minister here were interested in that, we'd be very happy to engage on what are some good guidelines or good rules that would encourage universities to look here. Australian universities are very experienced at delivering overseas. We have 40 years of experience with campuses in Dubai, in Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and campuses now coming up in Nepal's neighbour, India. Australia had the first 2 universities in the world approved to set up a campus in India. So we're keen, but really to do it, we have to do it well. It's a significant investment, and we really need clarity around policies and procedures in Nepal to be able to move forward. But I'm very hopeful and very happy to work to create this kind of ecosystem if that were something of interest to Nepal.
Thank you so much for your commitment on this. Now, moving on, what are some of the common challenges that Nepalese students face while they are studying in Australia, and how can they overcome such challenges?
So I think there's 2 that I'll talk about, but I'm sure there are more challenges that Nepalese students face when they come to Australia. Though what I would say, a lot of our institutions speak very highly of the Nepalese students in the classroom. They're very engaged, they're very hardworking, they're very entrepreneurial, and they make a great contribution to the Australian community. So that's the first outset. Students seem to do well when they come to Australia, and we're really pleased about that. But 2 areas that I would say for students to not underestimate when you come to Australia. This is not to put you off, it's just to think about when you're making the decision to come. One is around cost of living. Everywhere in the world there is a cost of living, cost of living has increased. It has there in Australia as well, particularly in the major cities where Nepalese students like to study. So that's one. So the cost of accommodation as well, cost of living. So don't underestimate the amount of money you may need. It's not just covering your student fees and then, you'll work and support yourself. Yes, working is a possibility for you in Australia 24 hours a week. I would really encourage people to think very clearly and do a lot of research. Make sure you're not under stress. Make sure you're not placing yourself in financial stress because that'll impact your studies and it'll put students in a really vulnerable position, which we don't want to see. So that's one. The second would be knowing your work rights. So we encourage international students to get work experience in Australia. When I was at university, which is a long time ago now, but when I was there, I worked as well. It's very usual for Australian students to work. It gives you good skills for life after study. But know your rights. Australia has the Fair Work Ombudsman, has a lot of information. It has a student ombudsman as well that is there and available to help and advise students about this. So make sure when you're starting work in Australia, do your research beforehand. Make sure that you're getting the correct pay. Make sure that you're aware of your rights. Most employers do the right thing. Unfortunately, there are some in the minority that don't. So I just really encourage students, go in with your eyes wide open. We want to welcome you. You'll have a great experience, but just do a bit of research to make sure you're not going to be taken advantage of.
Looking at what new opportunities or initiatives can Nepalese students expect from the educational institutions in Australia or the government itself?
Look, a really good question, I think. As I said at the outset, a lot of changes have come in terms of our migration system and visas. That is now settling down. And so we'll see that really now be put in place for a long time. So the criteria will be really clear for students. And a lot of the change that's happened in the sort of past 6 months will really start to settle down. Look, we're really keen to see more partnerships where students can do some time in Nepal and time in Australia. We've been seeing really strong interest and increasing groups of Australian students coming to Nepal and doing immersive experiences here in Nepal. Last year when I was here, I had the great opportunity to meet a group of young Australian nurses from the University of Tasmania that were here in Nepal, in Kathmandu, doing some pracs and doing some clinical work here. So these kind of initiatives, which is really two-way and bringing our countries closer together, we want to see more of and encouraging more of. We'd also really like to start to see, I think, some of that transnational education sort of happen and, some more research partnerships as well. The University of Southern Queensland has a really good partnership in forestry and ecology and sustainability here in Nepal as well. So more of these kind of partnerships, I think you can expect to see more of, which I think will give students sort of a clearer sense of what are Australian universities known for. It's not just business. There are lots of opportunities to do new and futuristic qualifications as well. Things like cybersecurity and AI. Some of these qualification types that are really new and emerging around the world, they're there and available for international students, for Nepalese students in Australia.
Finally, what message do you have for agents, students, parents, or anyone concerned from the side of Australian government and Australia's appeal as a study destination to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Australia remains an excellent choice for international students, and particularly for Nepalese students. We are open, we are warm, and we are welcoming. Our education system is some of the best in the world. Our institutions are some of the best in the world. Comparatively, we are very good value for money as well, and I know that's a very big consideration for parents and students here.
Yeah.
Our visa policies are very clear, and most of all, we really value Nepalese students in Australia, and we really protect them. So I'll go back to my point. No other country in the world has international student protections to the level that Australia has.
Yeah, true.
International students are protected in legislation, and this means that you can be assured of a safe place to come and study, really good quality experience of study. And, some of the qualifications we offer are very unique in the world, and I think Nepalese students will really enjoy that there in Australia. Plus, we have a really vibrant Nepalese community, so if you're missing home, you're missing some of your people, you can go and get Nepali food, you can get dukpa, you can get jol momo, anywhere in Australia, and if you're having that sort of sense of homesickness, there'll be a lot of familiarity for students there as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnston, for sharing such valuable insights and information to our audience. We appreciate your time, and we are hoping to see more Nepalese students there in Australia with such biggest qualifications. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me here today, Ramesh. It was a great pleasure, and it's always a delight to be in Nepal. I really love coming to Kathmandu. It's my 5th time here, and I enjoyed every single time I come. So thank you very much.
Okay, have a wonderful time here in Nepal.
Thank you, I will.
To our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that this interview has provided you with essential guidance on Australian education system. See you on next episode with a new guest. Thank you so much. See you.